Hi, Kira Lescu here. Understanding how our brain states work can really help our performance at work and in life. I'm going to explain the basics, so stay tuned.
So organizations are facing one of the biggest challenges.
As a business leader, you probably spend a lot of time trying to put in your best performance. And part of that is your ability to think, to be creative, to look at what's happening in a particular moment, to interpret that specific situation, and to interpret and predict trends. And in doing all of this, you need to manage the interpersonal relationships of a variety of different people. Your staff, your customers, your suppliers, and chances are probably a whole lot more. We use our brains for all of this, but do you actually know when you're in a positive brain state that's conducive to high performance, or when you're in a brain state that's in the negative zone where high performance and a subjective experience that is positive is a whole lot less likely? By being aware of our mental and emotional states, we can actually start to change these states. And we can actually do that quite rapidly. But to do this, we need to be aware, which is mindfulness in action, and have training that is skills and practice at changing these states. Mindfulness is one really great way of detecting those states, to know where we're at, and to have the ability to move in a more positive direction that will positively impact performance, and it'll also help our subjective experience of life and to enjoy it more. So here goes with the brain states. And please note that your brain has all of these going on at any particular given time. And what I'm actually talking about here are which ones are dominant at any particular time. And I'm going to go through the states from the ones that are more active, which is actually a negative association, to the least active, which is a positive association. So here we go. Beta brain state is from 14 to 40 hertz. Alpha brain state is from 7.5 to 14 hertz. Theta brain state is between 4 and 7. And delta brain state, which is between 0.5 hertz and 4 hertz. Now hertz just means cycles per second. So 40 hertz is 40 cycles per second. The higher the hertz, the more cycles per second in your brain. The lower the hertz, the fewer the cycles per second in your brain. I'm going to start my explanation at the very high end of the beta brain state, which is up to 40 hertz or cycles per second. This is actually a really negative zone. And that's true for the whole scale. The fewer the hertz, the more positive our subjective or emotional experience is, and most of the time, the better our performance is. These high beta brain states are actually pretty negative states. They're associated with depression, anxiety, anger, feeling overwhelmed, and in the very extreme with mental illness, for an example, schizophrenia. But as we come to the lower end of beta, where hopefully a lot of us spend most of our time, we are in normal, regular waking states, having conversations, doing logical work. And in this video, me talking to you, I would be in a low beta brain state. And the majority of you listening to me, hopefully, will also be in the lower brain state of beta. Unless you're tired of feeling totally freaked out. Oh, my life is so stressful. I don't know which way to turn. Well, if that's you, you might be in a higher beta brain state. It's important to note too that these ranges are dynamic and not static. As your emotions change, your brain states change as well, and they're changing all the time. Even in the natural rhythm of a day, they change, which makes mindfulness even more important. Knowing when you're in a good place, and maybe knowing when you need to check yourself before you say something or make a big decision. So if I have a really upsetting experience, I will be in a higher beta brain state until I use my mindfulness skills to bring it lower. Below that, we have the alpha brain state, which to me is one of the most amazing, exciting brain states we can access through mindfulness in action, or if you are so inclined, through meditation. Alpha brain state is characterized by super relaxation. And there are two kind of unofficial zones. High alpha brain state, which is both relaxed and alert, and is a very high performance state. And not everybody will have necessarily experienced this, but it's certainly well worth developing. The lower end of alpha you have felt for sure, because it's when you daydream. It's when you're waking up naturally without an alarm, and when you're just in that zone between awake and asleep, or when you're falling asleep. And that zone is also essential for good performance and good mental health. Missing it on a regular basis makes both the high alpha performance zone and the low beta more difficult to access. Your brain needs this regularly to function optimally. But we can also access this zone naturally when we're doing things that have super focus. You may have heard of the athlete's high. And the description of this certainly matched the characterizations of the alpha brain state. They are able to have tremendous performance, take in a ton of information, make really quick decisions, and then act on them very quickly. It's like they're anticipating what's going to happen next with being relaxed at the same time. And these people report that even though their bodies are working at the top end of their limits, their subjective experience is one of relaxation and of ease. I've personally experienced this state, and I can say it's true. The process a huge amount of data on the fly, and they do it accurately. Other people that access this state regularly are musicians, computer programmers, other artists, surgeons, lawyers, and anybody else that feels like they are totally in the moment and totally relaxed and performing at a high level of excellence at the same time. The other thing about this is super exciting is that high alpha brain state is also associated with super learning. If you have ever met anyone that can read a really detailed book and almost memorize that whole thing, that person, besides being annoying, is likely really skilled at accessing a high alpha brain state. The skill is positive, but it makes being mindful of what you're doing even more important. You want to be aware and conscious of what you're taking in. So in this brain state, you want to make sure you're taking in positive stuff and not negative stuff, because you'll really take it in on a deep level. Alpha brain state can also happen really easily out in nature, especially if you're really enjoying your surroundings, which again is mindfulness in action, and you're connecting with your environment. So hiking, mountain climbing, skiing, kayaking, and others. It can also happen in extreme sports, but this can have a little bit of a difference because you definitely have the extreme focus, but it has the adrenaline instead of the relaxation, which is a bit different than the alpha brain state, which is characterized by deep relaxation and high performance. So below alpha, we have the theta brain state, which is very rare for most people, even highly accomplished meditators when they are awake. For most people, you will access this when you're asleep, and you do have to have it. That's why I'm mentioning it. If you don't get it regularly in your sleep, it makes it so much harder to access the alpha brain state and the low beta brain states when you're awake. So highly trained meditators can access this when meditating, as can people that are really great at deeply relaxing while staying awake. It's characterized by feeling a oneness with everything. And I had an amazing experience in this zone, well, I think it was this zone, when I was skiing in Whistler, Canada a few years ago. As I was going down the mountain, I felt like I was the mountain. I felt like I could reach out my hands and touch the trees and even go beyond the trees. And you know, those runs are really big and really wide. So that was a really expansive experience. And it was so beautiful. And the weather was far from perfect, but because I was totally present, I felt totally alive and expansive. And I have to say, it was one of the most incredible, most beautiful, most amazing experiences in my life. And I remember it very, very clearly, even though it was a few years ago. And I didn't have my equipment there with me to measure my brain waves, but to me, this is the closest thing that I've had in my life that can exemplify what theta brain state is all about. The final brain state is delta brain state, and this is almost always a sleeping state. Even the best meditators in the world can't fully be in that brain state without having a few other ones unless they're asleep, but they can be very close. So this is when we don't have any thoughts at all. It is highly regenerative to your body, to your brain, and to your emotions. And you absolutely have to have it on a regular basis to be physically, mentally, and emotionally healthy, because it heals on all levels. So you have to have good quality sleep to access beta, low beta, and high alpha when you're awake. So if you want to learn more about this, please check out my website for developing skills in mindfulness and action for business professionals at theeagleinstitute.com. The link is in the cards for this video and in the notes below, so make sure you check it out. And our emotional states. We can actually change these states. You can change these states and the specific states. I'm going to explain the 5 basics. I'm going to explain the 5